What is going on, everybody? It's your boy Gsluke here with our round 3 live stream for the Sentry. Gonna make sure you have all the info you need, both for Showdown and for props today. To go out there, have yourself a slate, get out there on moving day, and hopefully add to the bankroll a little bit. So first off, welcome on in, everybody. Hopefully you have a little coffee on the side. If you're not a big coffee drinker, hopefully you're already awake. Unlike me over here, and are ready to get after it. So first off, welcome to everybody. We got William down there who says, thank you for the help yesterday, winning a whole $3,900 on Prize Picks. First off, congrats to you there, William. That's a quite little pocket change that you added right there. And you said, thank you for the help with the weather, pin locations and stuff. Well, we'll get right back after it today. So we'll be going over the tee times, going over all the pin locations for you, and hopefully can make it a solid round 3 for you as well. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get this thing started. So if you're coming on in, go ahead, say hi down in chat for me, and let's go ahead and get right on after this. So first off, in terms of your scoring average, yesterday was an absolute birdie bonanza. I mentioned the fact that the weather forecasts really weren't all in agreement, and we thought it might play a little bit easier than what we had in round 1. Well, it played almost an entire stroke and a half easier than what we had for round 1, which was already historic level scoring. So here for Saturday, we might see a little bit of regression right back to what we saw there on Thursday, but this course is set up easy. A lot of the natural areas that in past years would lead to lost balls have been cut down, and you see that reflected with the scoring. There's a lot less big numbers out there, not nearly as many doubles and triples as what we had even just last year in 2023. And you can see the weather forecast over here in Data Golf. We're going to go over to windy.com as well. You see that they're not calling for all that much wind, right? Yesterday, it was pretty much non-existent towards the first half of the day. Tomorrow, I should say today here on Saturday, it looks pretty clear early on. And it's worth noting that they're going off of both 9s today. So everyone's going to be teeing off pretty early. And then as the day goes on, it looks like it gets slightly windier. So, of course, that's just the Data Golf forecast on here. But if we hop over to the windy side, you'll see that that's pretty consistent with what we have over here. So this ECM forecast, right, everyone's teeing off between like 6 to I think like 8:30 a.m. It starts off really calm. And then by the time we get to like 1, 2 p.m., you can see there's a chance of a rain shower coming through, and then the wind gusts and the sustained winds go up rather drastically. They go over to the GFS model. It's the same kind of scenario. No weather in this forecast, but starts off pretty mild, right? Relatively low winds over there. And then by the time we get to right around midday, they're closer to like 15 to 20 miles an hour. So if that ends up happening, right, maybe the last hour or two of play might get a little bit harder than what we saw the first 2 days. But look at this icon model, right? This one's calling for low winds all day. If this is the case, you're going to see like another 5 under par scoring average. The Medio Blue model is also calling for relatively low winds. And then the NAM model, which has been calling for absolute madness all week, is doing it once again, right? This is the model yesterday that we completely threw out. So we probably want to do the same thing, right? It's not going to rain all day. Almost all the local forecasts are calling for like maybe a 10, 20% chance of showers, whereas this NAM model has a constant rain all morning and then like 25, 30 mile an hour winds. So that one's probably not worth looking at on there. But this ECM model, right? Maybe the later tee times get slightly affected. And the rest of them look pretty clear. So in terms of a scoring average, I think it'll be split down the middle between the first 2 days. I don't think we're going to see a 5.5 under par scoring average, but I also think we might see slightly better than this 4.17 under par. So we'll circle back when we get to the prop side here at about a half an hour, but it looks like this is going to play pretty typical for what we see at Kapalua. And from the strategy standpoint, because they're going off of both tees, there's not really as much of an edge for Showdown, right? Normally, we're trying to take the guys that are going off super early. All the tee time is within an hour or two out there. So I think it's like 2.5 hours between the first and the last tee time. So we're not going to have nearly as much separation from that end. Let's hop over to DFS and start to talk through some of the strategy for today, which should be a little bit of fun. We got Kurt down there. What's going on, Curtis? We got Bradley and Juan. Hopefully, you guys, like I said, are having a solid morning. I'm still waking up over here. Trust me, if I was up earlier, it would be doing like a live stream at 9:30 a.m. But I get up around 9:30, so still trying to wake up a little bit. Hopefully, you guys are a little bit more awake than I am here. And speaking of, I need to start slinging this coffee now. I got stuff to do today. We got a Steeler game on today. I'm a big Steeler fan, as you guys probably know at this point, and our playoff hopes are on the line today. So I've got to wake myself up for that game at 4:30. So let's get into this here a little bit. In terms of your showdown strategy for round 3, it is going to be eerily similar to what we said yesterday, because everything that applies for round 2 applies for round 3. It is all about differentiation. It is all about game theory for this DFS contest. And when you have a scoring average of 5-6 under par, it is all about those ceiling performances, right? If we're going to take down the GPP today, you need to have all 6 of your players probably shooting at least 6 under par, and you want 4 of them probably getting to 7-8 under par out there. So you're going to need spike performances. And what I'm looking at for spike performances are, first off, guys hitting the ball well, and then players that have putting regression coming to them. And I think a perfect example of that would be Xander Schauffele, who hit the ball beautifully yesterday, particularly on his back 9. I know that because I had a little bet for his under on strokes, which ended up hooking by 0.5. So that was infuriating. I actually had 6 props yesterday that ended up hooking by 0.5. It was one of the more annoying slates for DFS, especially on like the prop side, that I've had for quite some time. But Xander Schauffele did everything he could to go under that line. I mean, he was hitting dart after dart. He had, I think, like 5 or 6 putts less than 12 feet for birdie on his back 9. And I think he made 2 of them out of all of those different opportunities. So, one of the better putters on tour. If you look at some of his birdie better stats, one of the better birdie putters that we have on all the PGA Tour. So the fact that he's going to be relatively low owned up top makes him an intriguing option for me. Max Homa, right? Same thing at -10. These guys that are a little bit further back, right? They're not out of contention, right? At -10, -11 respectively, but they have to be a lot more aggressive to get into the mix. When you got a Scotty out there 5 shots ahead, 6 shots ahead from a Max Homa, I mean, you're going to have to go out there, shoot 9-10 under par to try and make up ground to a Scotty Scheffler. So look for players like Xander, Max Homa that know that they're behind the 8 ball to go out there and maybe try and force things a little bit, which could go one of 2 ways, right? If you're forcing things, you could end up making mistakes, but at the same time, if they end up going well for you, you could go out there and end up posting a pretty solid score. So I like that for Xander, and for somebody like Max Homa, they fit that game theory angle that we're looking for, and at the same time, we're hitting the ball beautifully, right? Obviously, Scotty leading the golf tournament is hitting the ball pretty well. Victor Hovland looked a lot better during round 2 at the ball striking, so I think you could take him for showdown on this sort of slate. Up top, maybe you do want to take a Scotty, right? But just know if you're going to take him in your lineups today, you're going to have to differentiate down in the 8 and 9K range. So there's a time and place for taking Scotty, particularly if you like some of the differentiation game theory plays, right? Down here in the 8s and 9s. But if you're looking to get a little different up top, right, try and get some leverage with your top end elite level player, a Xander and Homa fit that perfectly. Down here in the 9K range, Tom Kim is another guy you could play looking for a little bit of putting bounce back. Tom Kim has kind of just been a little bit rusty over the first 2 rounds, but he's one of the higher birdie percentage players in the field, right? We know we can get extremely hot with the putter and in to hurry out there. So at $9,100, now that he's only like 13% owned, which isn't the lowest in this range, right? You've got guys like Matty Fitz that are slightly lower owned, Tommy Fleetwood, somebody like Wyndham Clark, right, at 7.8%. But in terms of upside, right, I'd say that Tom Kim has much more upside than a lot of the other players in this range, and isn't outrageously high owned, right? You've got a Spieth at 20% around him, a Terrell Hand at nearly 20%, a nearly 25% owned Colin Morikawa. So in comparison, right, maybe compared to some of the low owned plays, right, he's slightly higher owned. He's like half the ownership, right, as some of these chalky guys around him. So I like Tom Kim there. In terms of points per dollar projection, you can see he projects for 67.1 points, which is almost as much as a Max Homa, right? And the reason for that is because of the birdie production that Tom Kim's able to post. So I'm looking for aggressive players, right? On a day where you're going to have to get to 7-8 under par to get to the optimal lineup, I need a player like Tom Kim that can go out there and get to that kind of score. It's going down to this 8K range. Ricky Fowler, right? Another aggressive, solid putter you can take. In terms of points per dollar value, is another one of the plays in this range that shines above the rest. On top of that, Ricky Fowler is hitting the ball pretty well, right? He's got that ball striking working, or especially during the second round out there. So you like that, right? High upside play, not super highly owned. And the reason for that is we've got a guy like Sungjae Im around him, right? He's 25% owned, just sucking up all of that ownership. Heck, even a Brian Harman, a Tony Finau, right, are taking some attention away from a Ricky. Cam Young, Sahith Theegala, right up there at nearly 20%. make Ricky Fowler an excellent play. Like, because in a vacuum, Ricky Fowler, who's like playing decently, right? Who's cheaper than he should be at $8,300, who's only 12% owned, right? On most slates, he might be closer to 20%, but because of the guys around him, it's actually a little bit of a leverage play on this sort of slate. Eric Cole seems due for a big performance. And sorry if you guys hear me sniffling. Seem to be getting a little bit sick here, but we'll power through. Eric Cole at 10.7% ownership. He's due for that spike putting performance, right? He's one of the better Bermuda putters in the field. To this point of the week, he's still -10, so it's not like he's playing poorly, but he hasn't had that electric round that we've come used to seeing at this point. So $7,800. He's only 10% owned, right? A lot of that because of Sepp Straka, right? A lot of these guys up here in the 8K range that are sucking away ownership from the top of the sevens. Denny McCarthy worth a few looks, right? $7,500. Another player that's more than capable of spiking with the putter. And if you're going to hone in on anyone's skill set, right? I think the ball striking numbers are always going to be predictive, but more so it's the putting, right? We need guys that can go out there, spike 3-4 shots gained with the putter, and that's their way to the optimal lineup. You got Adam Svensson down here, another player that's also relatively overlooked. Not playing horribly, right, at -8, but not as flashy as a Brendan Todd at -15. Benny Ann, right, at -14. Heck, even Adam Shane and Tom Hoagie, right, are getting a little bit more attention. So for somebody like Svenny, that's a high birdie percentage player, extremely aggressive kind of mindset, are the types of players that I'm taking for Showdown today. You got Siwoo Kim down here, another guy who's not afraid to aim at pins. If you can't tell, I'm looking for guys that have absolutely no fear, and somebody like Siwoo Kim checks that box emphatically. And then Davis Riley, same thing, right? Another player that is known for being overly aggressive on this kind of slate, and especially at -5. Like, Davis Riley has nothing to lose. He's already an absolute madman to begin with. And now you're telling him that it's a no-cut event. He's got 2 more rounds to work with, and he's 10, 11 shots off the lead. I mean, the guy's going to go out there and try and make birdie on every hole. So there's some utility to that, right? Taking these guys, heck, even like an Andrew Putnam, right? Or a Vince Norman, right? That really have nothing to lose at this point. That kind of mindset for a moving day, when they're going to set up pins to have that risk reward aspect, like I said, it could go one of 2 directions, right? Guys like Homa, Xander Schauffele are going to put their pedal to the metal. Same thing with these sort of players. They might end up having a stinker round, or right, they might go out there, actually have their best stuff, and get you the ceiling performance that you're looking for. So I like taking on that risk, particularly because I am a large field GPP player. And those sort of players are the ones that I'm looking at over from the Showdown side. So now we'll go over any questions for Showdown. And then afterwards, we're going to talk props, because we got some tee times to go through, some pin locations that we're going to analyze here on stream, and some Underdog price pick stuff, and even some props over there on Hard Rock Bet that we'll talk as well. So a lot to go through here. Let's go ahead and finish up on the Showdown stuff. What's going on, Logan? Good to see you starting this season strong. Of course, let's keep it going. You entered a few DK Classics. You got Colin Morikawa, Clark, Aberg, Finau, Straka, and Hughes. You're sad, but you think it'll be okay this weekend? Yeah, if you're entering a few lineups, I mean, especially if you're entering a large field GPP, man, that's going to be the regular kind of result that you get. It's tough, especially if you're playing in like a large field contest. But yeah, it's a 4-round event, so you're definitely not dead yet. What is my favorite prize picks today? We'll get to it. There's been a lot of bumps, so we're going to have to take a look at the board again. But a lot of unders, Tom. I think it plays pretty easy once again. Let's go ahead, cycle over to Draftkings, and hop into this lineup construction stuff. And then afterwards, we're going to talk a little bit about the props like I mentioned. So first and foremost, in terms of lineup construction, if you're taking pivots like I am, there's nothing to worry about, right? I'm taking pivots in all 6 spots. So like, for example, right, if I started with a Xander, I threw in a Tom Kim as like my second man in. Third man in, let's go ahead and throw Ricky in there, right? Top of the sevens, you can throw Eric Cole, right? A lot of the guys that we talked about in this video, all of these guys are not super chalky plays. None of them are exceptionally low owned, but because we're not taking those 25, 30% owned players, our product ownership is going to be just fine. So, maybe for this middle tier range, we try and take some sort of a pivot. Justin Rose would be a low owned pivot on this kind of slate. And even if you rounded this out with an Adam Schenk, right? Or even a Luke List that's getting some attention, you'd have no problems with differentiation. Because you took a Xander up top rather than a 30% owned Scotty, because you took a Tom Kim, who's half the ownership of like 3 or 4 guys over there in the 8, 9K range, you're going to be just fine with your ownership. So let me get a sip of coffee. I'm about to cough here. Definitely getting a little sick. Ugh. My mom has a COVID, so might have gone that from her at Christmas, but we'll live. Ugh. People down here in Florida, by the way, just have gone COVID like 6 times. It's just like, it's kind of get used to it at this point, unfortunately. If you're starting with a Scotty, I'll show you guys why you might have to focus on the ownership. Maybe just a little bit more in that scenario. If we started with a Scotty, and let's say you just have to play somebody like Morikawa today, you're like $9,600 is too cheap. I have to play him. Not only is that going to screw you in terms of salary, but like your ownership starts to get a little bit out of hand. So if you went down here and took a Ricky, let's go ahead and throw Eric Cole into this lineup as well. With your last 2 spots, because you have a 25% owned, a 30% owned player in this lineup, you have to differentiate, right? So rather than taking like an Adam Schenk, a Tom Hoagie who's getting some attention, I mean, first off, we got to save the salary, right? We're down to $6,600, but you've really got to try to find a pivot here. So maybe this is where Davis Riley comes in handy. If you want to be a little bit more chalky, then take a real chance on somebody like Davis down low. He gives you the differentiation. He gives you the salary flexibility that you're looking for. There's just a little bit of a trade-off if you want to get to these chalkier players. It's not that you can't make the lineups, right? I'm always going to hammer that home for everyone down to my content, but there's just trade-offs. There's pros and cons, right, to taking players at high ownership. So that's the lineup construction segment. We do the same thing pretty much for every live stream we do here, and not much changes for a round 3 showdown. Now let's talk about some props, and a good talking point for that is going to be a start with the pins, which I already went through them last night. So yesterday, right, is my first look at some of these pins. They look easier than what we had for round 2. And now we'll cycle back on the weather here in a few minutes as well. The weather does look like it's going to be a little bit tougher, right? It looks like a little bit nastier, right, than what we had the first 2 days. I don't know if it's going to matter. These pin locations are like absolute cupcakes. So let me go ahead, share my screen, and we'll talk through it. Where we at? There we go. All right. Let's see. Any thought with guys starting with earlier tee times? That's why I think it's going to play super easy, right? If they're going off earlier, they're all going to have receptive greens. They should be in relatively low winds as well. And the main reason for that, just to give you an idea, is some of the forecast here are calling for afternoon showers. So to try and avoid that, it looks like the tour, right, is sending off guys just a little bit earlier. And the second result of that is I think you're going to see excellent scoring. So if we go back to the average from round 2 and even round 1, we'll cycle back on that. It played a stroke easier during the quote unquote AM wave, which was just the first half of tee times. And then if we go to round 1, it was about a half a stroke difference. So now that everyone's going to be going off earlier, right, them going off of both tee boxes, I think that's going to make the scoring average easier, right? So even if it gets windier towards midday, which again, the forecasts are calling for it to get windy around noon. I mean, they're going off earlier, right? So they're not even playing that much into the afternoon. And they had easier conditions for at least 2 hours, right? So does that offset the wind that kicks up? I think there's a good argument to be made for that. So in terms of props, you know, I think the scoring average is going to be right around like 4.75 under. If I had to take a guess on it. And if that's the case, a lot of these props are too low. So we'll talk about some pin locations, but yeah, I do think there's something to that, James. I do think it'll play a lot softer because of that, especially for like the guys that would be teeing off later, like your leaders and whatnot. So if we go to our round 3 pin locations, first up, and let me move this over here. I got a back right pin, which is very similar to what we had in round 1. So if I go back here and change this to round 1, let's see. You can see it was back there in the back right. So it's almost an identical pin location. It's going to play right around even par like it has for the first 2 days. And I don't think much is going to change on that end. Let's go to hole number 2. Hole number 2 is a back right pin. So obviously for round 2, right, they had the pin here in the front right. Now it's going to be back here in the back right, which might be slightly harder, but it's already a pretty difficult hole to begin with. So this wasn't a hole that you were picking up a bunch of birdies on. Maybe for today, it's slightly harder to go out there and make a par. So this is one of the few pin locations that I think will get more difficult. But you'll see as we go on here, especially there in the back 9, a lot of the pins are pretty straightforward. So hole 3 is a front left pin. It's going to play even shorter than what we had for the first 2 days. That's a pin that's going to get easier here for round 3. Hole number 4 is a back right pin. Though it is a back right pin, it plays slightly longer. It is an easier pin than what we had for round 2. And round 2 was over here to the left. You had a lot of people missing left in this natural area. You had people missing down in the bunker and having a real tough up and down. And the only way to get it close to this kind of pin was either to take on this penalty area to the left, or to try and move it off the slope, which I thought you might see players take advantage of, right? I think we mentioned yesterday that I thought that this might be a bull pin location. It played pretty damn hard. You had guys that even 3-putted coming off the slope. So now that it's over here on a flatter area of the green, you don't have this little side slope that you have to play it off of. You're also playing away from this natural area to the left. You're going to see people more aggressive to this right side pin, and you're also going to see a lot better scoring. So hole number 4, just like hole number 3, looks like it'll play a little easier. Hole 5 is a back left middle pin. So it's like a back left center. It's over here on the left. This is the easiest pin that you have. First off, you get to play away from the hazard once again. So kind of like what we had last hole. You're not taking on all the shit to the right that you don't want to be in. And then you have the slopes over here on the left side of the green that if you end up actually missing the green slightly over here to the left, it may propel it onto the green. So this is an eagle pin location. It's already the easiest hole on the golf course. And I think it's going to get easier here for moving day, which is a common sentiment, right? Moving day is supposed to be the best scoring that you see the entire weekend. And it looks like they're setting it up for that. Hole 6 is another easy pin location. And it's going to be a lot of this, guys, right? We have that one hard pin at 2. It is a shit ton of easy pins. Here at hole number 6, it's in this back left on this little plateau, which is the easiest pin location that you can get. This front left pin is a little bit too severe to get it close. We saw some guys trying to use the slope to the left and end up the whole way down here to the right. There's that same kind of banking here in the back left, but it's a little bit less severe, you can see, right? Like on the green, right, it's not running nearly as fast as what you have down here towards the bottom left. So the result of that is that you can hit shots, little wedge shots, because it plays as a short par 4. You can hit wedge shots up onto this bank and pull them back onto the pin, right? All the slope's going to bring you back onto the green. If you have a little bit of backspin on it, you might even be able to get the ball pretty close to the pin over there. So it'll play easier than what you had for the first 2 days. And it's definitely easier than what you had for round 2. Hole number 7 it's like a back right pin. It's not like tucked the whole way back, though. It's like just over this little hill over here. If you guys were noticing the shot tracker from rounds 1 and 2, a lot of people ended up just above the slope right here or slightly over here down to the right. And the pin location is slightly down over here to the right. So if you're somebody that misses in front of the slope here, I mean, you can just lag it down to that pin location. Or if you happen to get over that slope, you might actually get it to within 4 or 5 feet of the hole. So hole number 7 is another pin that is easier than what we had the first 2 days. Hole number 8 is a front right pin. You guessed it. It's another easy pin, right? It plays shorter than what you had before. It's less of a forced carry over this canyon to the left side. Yeah, it looks like they're taking it easy on these players, frankly. Hole 9, a par 5, you guessed it, another easy pin. It's here in the front left. It's pretty close to what you had for round 1. Actually, just even a little bit shorter than what you had there for Thursday. So once again, another massive birdie opportunity. Hole 10 is tucked on the left. So this is actually one of the pins that you could say might be slightly harder than what we had the first few days. It's over here on the bottom left shelf there in the front left corner. You can use the slope to the right to try and get it close, but you're still only talking about a 382-yard par 4 that people are hitting pitching wedges or even degreed wedges into. So might be a slightly harder pin, but really not all that hard, all things considered. Hole number 11 now. 11 is a front right pin. It's another short par 3, and you guessed it, right? Shorter, more open, not nearly as defended as the bunkers. It is an easier pin. Hole number 12. Hole 12 is a back left pin. It's back here on this top left corner. You can see you have a little slope helping you from the left side and a lot of room to the right. So I wouldn't say that this pin is necessarily easier, right, than what we had for the first 2 days, but it's pretty much the same. It's just as straightforward, I would say. Hole number 13 is a front right pin. This is another shorter par 4. Let's see. Is it above or below the slope? Let's see. So it's we're on hole 13, right? It's 15 paces on. So it's going to be just above this little slope right here. So the pin's going to be up there. There's a little false front here, which might make things a little bit difficult, but you have plenty of room behind the pin, right, to hit a wedge, have it spin back. And because it's a 388-yard par 4, you're going to have people hitting degreed wedges in. So Don't overspin it. If you end up a little bit short with your distance control, it might actually roll the whole way off the green, which would be a pretty hard up and down, all things considered. But if you hit a good shot, you're going to have like 4 or 5 feet for birdie. It's that's going to be an interesting one. It's a perfect moving day pin, right? They give you the shorter pin. They give it, to the broad side of the green, but there's no bunker to worry about. But they do put it above this little slope, which I think was a well thought out pin location. Hole number 14 is a back middle pin, maybe favoring slightly towards the right side here. Everyone's been missing in this left bunker. Yesterday I mentioned that the miss for this left pin, right, was to hit it in this right bunker. Unfortunately, no one did that. Now I kind of understand why now. So if we zoom out here a little bit, it's just framed that way. So off this tee box, I guess you don't get the perfect perspective here, but you can kind of get an idea. People are hitting fades off of this left bunker and trying to get it to roll up onto the green. No one, and I mean literally no one, is aiming at this out of bounds to the right. And it's because it's out of bounds that no one's going to do this and then trying to hit a draw in, right? To this pin location that's on the right side, like it is here for round 3, you kind of do want to hit a draw in there, right? And end up in that left bunker. But because of this out of bounds over here, it's just not going to happen. So everyone's going to miss left. Everyone's going to hit a fade off of this left bunker. If it fades and goes on the green, great. If it goes straight, like a lot of people, obviously hit straight balls out there in this hole, you end up in this bunker. So for round 3, you're going to see more birdies because of how many people are missing on this left side. And yeah, just, I thought it was worth pointing out, why people weren't missing over here to the right. It's because as soon as you get to this tree line here, you're quite literally re-teeing. You're Oscar Brown, as good old Kevin Kisner called it yesterday. And I have to say, guys, what do you guys think about Kevin Kisner and his commentating? I thought he did a pretty damn good job out there. Hole 15 is a back left pin, so it's a par 5. It's up here on this ridge. And a lot of people yesterday were missing this right side over here, and we're rolling the whole way down the slope. And when I mean whole way down the slope, I don't mean a couple yards off the screen. I've been running 30, 40 yards down the hill. So now that it's over here to the left, it does bring this natural area into play a little bit, but it does make it a much easier up and down. If you hit it on the green, obviously it's a pretty easy 2-putt, but if you miss over here to the left, it's a little chip onto the green. You obviously should probably get up and down for a birdie. I just think that because of this slope over here to the right, this pin location, like I said, though it is tucked a little bit, I think might play slightly easier. Hole 16 is a front left pin, shorter hole, so it's a wedge hole, and it's wide open, right? It's a little bit closer to the bunker that you have over here, but there's no slopes to really worry about, and it's pretty flat for your putting. And then finally, hole 17 is a back left pin. This one will be a little bit tough. This is one of the harder pins that we've had all week. So this one's probably not as much of a birdie opportunity, but it's tucked the whole way over here to the left. The safe, quote unquote, safe miss on this hole, right, is to miss to the right. So you don't bring the canyon into play. Over here for round 3, you're going to have to take it on. So if you end up missing the whole way to the right, it's going to be a tough up and down. So yeah, hole 17, one of the rare holes that's going to play harder. And then hole 18, we finally got the absolute gold money pin for hole 18. It is a front right pin, and this is where you're going to see eagles galore, right? This is a hole that's already reachable, even though it's almost 700 yards. And if anyone's reaching this green in 2, they were hitting it on this front right plateau, right? And if you were missing the green, everyone was missing just off the screen to the right. So, for round 2, what was the scoring average? Let's see. It was 0.78 under par. It's probably going to play 0.9 under par, kind of like what you saw for hole number 5. Because of this pin location difference. So you're going to see more eagles there, right? We saw more eagles for round 2 with the pin over here just to the middle left of this pin, of this green, I should say. Now that it's in the front right where everyone actually hits the golf ball, and the reason for that, right, is this penalty area to the left is an automatic lost ball. So you don't want to hit it there, right? Tom Hoagie learned his lesson yesterday. What happens when you hit it in that gunch over there? This pin location is just asking to have birdies and eagles. So that'll be a fun one and should lead to some pretty solid scoring. Let's bring up the pin location sheet and see if there's any comments. How about those going off hole 10 versus 1? I have no take on that. If you knew what direction the wind was going, which honestly, guys, the forecasts are all over the place. You could try and target the guys that'll have the wind going their way, but I have no take on it, James. I'm not enough of a wind guru to give you that. Kisner killed it. He was roasting the announcers and players every chance he got. Yeah, I thought so too, man. He's you can tell he's so genuine about it too. You know, he goes out there, he's just saying what's on his mind. He knows that the players aren't going to get offended because that's just his personality. He talks shit 24/7, no matter who you are. And I like that, right? I think a few of the commentators have been maybe a little hesitant to call players out for bad shots. But like Kisner yesterday, right? A guy hit a bad putt. He was like, oh, it's just a bad putt, right? A lot of times you'll hear commentators go like, oh, he must have misread it, so on and so forth. No, the guy just missed the damn putt, right? Call it out for what it is. And I think that was my favorite part about Kisner, is he said it how it was. That's for damn sure. All right, now let's talk about some props. And the bumps on both of the sites were the worst I've ever seen them. Let's say that. I was putting in slips last night, and within like 30 seconds, they were going out there and bumping them. And the entire board has moved like an entire stroke, an entire half a birdie to a birdie on pretty much every player. And if you're going to take anything at this point, you know, there's a few pieces of hanging value, I would say, but not nearly as much as there was before. So we'll do some line shopping between Prize Picks and Underdog to try and find the best lines. But over here on Underdog, we actually have better strokes lines available. So like, for example, Hideki Matsuyama, right? He's at 68.5. Over here on Underdog. On Prize Picks, he's at 68 strokes. Give you another example, right? Somebody like, let's find one here. Brian Harmon, right? He's at 67.5 over there on Prize Picks. On Underdog, he's at 68 strokes. So if you're going to take any unders on strokes, which given the pin locations that we just went through and the fact that the wind forecasts don't look nasty, right? They look a little bit worse, but not nasty. You know, it's unders, right? You want to be taking some unders on this sort of slate. You know, you could argue for an over on somebody like a Scotty Scheffler at 66.5 strokes. I know a few people that have actually taken overs on him, which I understand. The projection for him to shoot 7 under par is pretty crazy. But on sportsbooks, which I'll actually go ahead and just bring up FanDuel right now, he's juiced towards the under. They think that he has a better chance of shooting 7 under par than not, which is bold. Let's say that. It's a bold take, but that's the take the sportsbooks are taking. So let me go ahead and share my screen for you guys and show you what we're talking about on FanDuel. So odds obviously move. So maybe they moved a little bit on Scotty. Honestly, they probably should. Given the fact that he's projected to shoot 7 under par. But let's find the good old Scotty on here. Did I pass him already, or did they take him off? There he is. So Scotty Scheffler, so look at this. He's closer to even money now. So I agree with that. Last night, they had him at 66.5, and he was juiced to minus 165 towards the under. I thought that was a little bit ridiculous. So that makes a little bit more sense. But like guys like Tom Kim, for example, right? He's at 67.5. He's juiced minus 140 towards the under. Let's find Hideki Matsuyama, right? Just so I can show you guys that example. Where is Hideki at? These aren't in any sort of order, so it's hard to get through them. So look at this, right? Hideki's at 67.5. He's just over now. So that's actually interesting. Last night, he was at even money at 67.5. So at this point, I think the board has been bumped to a spot where a lot of the projections are fair. It doesn't mean you can't make money playing props at this point. It's just you have to be a little bit more picky about it, right? So for example, Ludwig Aberg here, right? He's 67.5 strokes. He's minus 165 towards the under, right? Which is crazy juice out there. So if you wanted to play that prop, let's find Aberg. I know they have him up here. Right? He's at 68 strokes. So not only are you getting a 0.5 stroke discrepancy, right, in your favor, you're also getting a minus 165 juiced prop. So I got him at 68.5 last night. That got bumped down 0.5 strokes. But even at this kind of projection, I'd still take him. And to give you an idea, on Prize Picks, he's at 67.5 strokes. So they've gone down, bumped him to that sort of projection. So let's go ahead, throw him in there. And let's find the unfortunate part about Underdog, right, guys, is that you can't take 2 unders on strokes. So for example, right, if I wanted to throw Aberg in there and, you know, anyone, right, it could really be anyone we wanted to throw in, we couldn't take 2 unders on strokes. They just have rules against it. I think eventually they are going to let us go out there and enter 2 in the same direction for a slightly lower payout. But until then, it's pretty annoying. So if you're going to find an over, by the way, the birdie average for round 2, meant to mention this before, was 6.48 per round. That is the highest I have ever seen. It's a whole 3 birdies higher than your tour average. So if they have guys on here at 6 birdies, right, I think a lot of people's first reaction would be that these projections are way too high. They're not, right? These guys are projected below the field average for round 2. The round one average was like 5.8 birdies. So even if we split the middle, right, that's slightly over a 6 birdie per round average. A guy like Aberg, he was #1 on tour last year in birdie or better percentage, right? Projects well over that 6 mark. So, I mean, you could take an over on Ludwig's birdies if you wanted to. I don't think that's a terrible prop, but I prefer the guys at 5.5. And last night, I was able to get a bunch of guys at 5.5. Let's see, did they bump Spieth up to 6.5? Because if they didn't, I was going to take them at 6, but something tells me that, yeah, they bumped them. That is so annoying. Dang, that was going to be the slip I gave you guys here too. It was going to be an over on Jordan and then this under on Aberg. We'll find someone else at 6, right? Because I think that's going to be right about the field average for birdies today. If I had to take a projection, and a lot of these players are just way better than average birdie makers. Like, I think guys at 6.5, like Cantlay, they could even be at 7, to be frank. But let's try and find some better value. Like, I got Hideki at 5.5. Now he's up at 6. So you might not want to get exposure there. Let's see. I don't love taking Glover because of his putter. I don't love taking Justin Rose because he's washed. But you could, if just based on the average of the field, right? If you're just playing the numbers game, you could definitely take a Rose or a Glover. But I just prefer to get somewhere else because of their play, to be frank. Fleetwood was at 5.5 birdies. We got him last night. Oh, yeah, they bumped a lot of the board. What do they have Sahith at on Prize Picks? Let me check. So they have Sahith at 6 birdies. They have Matty Fitz at 6.5. So we could take an over on Fitz. That's a 0.5 discrepancy right there. Let's see. Where's good old Matty Fitz? Yeah, he's down here at the bottom. So for now, we'll throw Matty Fitz in the shopping cart. I want to double check on how he's been playing. So give me a second here. Let me bring up the PGA site, and we'll do a deep dive on his shots gained metrics. Because, I don't know, Fitz is the type of player I only play when he's playing well. When he's hitting the ball well is when I'm willing to play Fitz. So let's see. And I'm assuming he's playing okay, right? Because he's there at tied for 9th. So let's check this. So round 2, he gained 3 strokes. But yeah, I'm not doing this. We're not taking Fitz. Nope, not happening. If you're wondering why I said no so fast, he gained 1.7 strokes putting on Thursday. He lost strokes on approach. And then round 2, he was about neutral, which isn't terrible, but he gained 3 strokes putting. I want nothing to do with that with Fitz. So it's a good thing we checked that, because that is the exact scenario I'm looking to avoid. Let's see. Henley, English, Hadman, McCarthy, Kitayama for a good showdown core. I don't know if you should have your 7K guys as your core. Personally, my core plays are always up top. So yeah, I don't know if I'd call those guys core plays, but I think they're good value plays. You're just late, of course. Hi, Luke. Do you think Cantlay has been working? This guy always tries to get me to say stuff, and I'm better than that, man. You're not going to get me to say it. Hopefully you're having a great Saturday morning. Let's say that. It'll be your last comment here, though. All right, let's go through and try to find someone at 6 birdies that we can take. So we're trying to find some sort of value. I mean, Corey Connors is not the worst play, honestly, at 5.5 birdies. He's not the best putter, right? So kind of like a Justin Rose. Actually, Rose is a pretty good putter, but kind of just like a Lucas Glover, right? You don't like taking his over on birdies because he doesn't have the flat stick most times. But let's see how Corey Connors has been hitting the ball. I can be convinced if he hit the ball well yesterday. I know he didn't play that well. Let's see. So 1, 2, he made 5 yesterday. That's right. And how'd he putt? He lost putting. It's pretty typical. And then he was average everywhere else. Ugh. Yeah, day 1, he was a loser on approach. He looks a little rusty, if you had to ask me, Corey Connors. So we'll probably stay away from Corey. I took him yesterday at 4.5. He hit for us. But, the fact that he's not hitting the ball well is just, I don't love it, right? I want guys that I love to play on. So we could throw Burns in there. I don't hate the idea. We could take a Ricky's birdies. I'm just throwing ideas in here right now, by the way. We're going to find one to actually take. We could take a Finau at 6. We could take a Sanjay at 6. Which, speaking of, let's take Finau out because his putter sucks. Yeah, these are probably our top 6 at 6 birdies. Let's see. Anyone else? All right, let's choose between one of these 4. So we've got Burns, Fowler, Cam Young. Actually, we're going to take Cam Young out because of the putter. He's not a good putter. And for birdie or better props, guys, you want guys that can make their damn putts. It's tilting as fuck when their players are hitting the ball to 5-7 feet all day and they're not making shit, which happened with like 4 people yesterday. So if you can't tell, I'm trying to avoid that here for today. So we got Burns, Fowler, and Sanjay. So I'm going to see who's hitting the ball best. They're all putting beautifully at this point. So Sam Burns, at least I think they are, lost putting both days. That never happens, and he gained on approach. That feels pretty good because Sam Burns is the type of player that normally makes everything with the putter, right? It is not good with the approach play. So he's probably at the top of the list. Let's take a look at Ricky. I know Ricky had a hell of a round yesterday. I know he gave away a few strokes at the end, but I don't think it was that many. There he is. All right. So he gained on approach. You love that. And he lost to the putter. So him and Sam Burns have the same kind of profile. So that's going to be a tough one to choose between. And then let's take a look at Sanjay. I mean, Sanjay is like in 3rd place, right? He's absolutely killing it. Or 2nd place, actually. Let's see. So he's gaining with the putter, and he gained 2 straight. Yeah, so we're either going to take Sam Burns or Ricky. The main reason being, right, is I want guys that aren't carrying themselves with the putter. And then if we had to choose between these two, oh, that's tough, isn't it? Let's see. Are they on Prize Picks? So they have Burns at 6, and they have Ricky at 6 on Prize Picks. So there's no discrepancy there. How are we going to break this tie? Let's see. Let's look at the stats. It'll give us an answer. So for round 2, if we're just looking at yesterday, right, he lost on approach, which, you know, it was only 0.4 strokes. I don't know if we're going to if we should be pissed about that, but let's see. What did we see from Ricky? Ricky was -9. Yeah. Gained nearly 2 strokes on approach. Yeah, we're going to go with Ricky. Feels like he's the safer play. He's hitting the ball a little bit better than what we have with Sam Burns. So yeah, this over on Ricky has a lot of push equity there at 6. And then this under on Aberg is an absolute smash play. And if you're just looking for unders on strokes, is what we'll do right now. The best props that you can take an Underdog right now are these strokes props. There's a lot that are discrepancies compared to books. And if you have other sports to mix with, right? Because if we wanted to take like these 2 for unders, right? Like we couldn't do it. They're not going to allow us to take these 2 together. Just to show you what I'm talking about, right? Well, it says I hit my $100 limit, but even if I hadn't, right, it still wouldn't let us enter that prop. If you have other sports to mix with, if you're playing like NFL props today, you could take a lot of these unders on strokes and just pair them together. So to give you an idea of what I'm talking about, let's find Sanjay on here. Like Sanjay is at 67.5. He's also juiced -140 under, right? So that would be another really solid value when it comes to your strokes projections. Let's see. Let's find a few more. So like Brian Harman, I believe, is another one of those players. Let's see. Yeah, Brian Harman, right? Actually, no, he's juiced over. So maybe not with Brian Harman. Maybe we avoid that one. Let's find Jordan Spieth. Is he one? Okay, let's see. Oh, I need to find Spieth. There he is. He's also, right, 67.5, but he's at, actually, yeah, it's another good one, another one right there, right? Another guy, 68 strokes. That's 0.5 strokes higher than the books, and he's juiced towards the under. So that's another one of those value plays that you could take at that. Let's see, anything else? Terrell Hatton, I'm assuming, is also juiced under. Let's see. Hatton. Not Snapchat. We're looking for Hatton. All right. Hatton's slightly juiced under, so maybe not as good a value as these other 3, but let's keep fishing out here. Let's look at Tony Finau. Tony Finau, I believe, is another one of these players. He's juiced over at 67.5, so maybe not. Is Birds? Might as well check, right? And these odds are definitely moving a little bit. That's for sure. They're not the exact same odds as what we had last night. Let's see, Cam Young. Actually, yeah, I'd say these would be my top 3 strokes props. You could throw a Tommy Fleetwood in there. He's only played here 2 rounds though, so doesn't have as much of a track record as these other 2 players. Aberg's in that same boat. See anything else? Yeah, we'll stick with these 3. So if you're just trying to mix and match with other sports, these would be my top 3 props over here on Underdog. But again, if you're trying to find a slip to enter, right, take this Ricky Fowler over, right? If you're going for a golf only slip, it's unfortunate the kind of rules they have over here, but it's what we have to deal with at this point. Let's go over to Prize Picks, and then we're going to talk Hard Rock Bet. So if you guys are sticking around waiting for some matchup stuff, we're going to cover that at the end after we go through this Prize Picks board. On Prize Picks, the value isn't really as great, right? These guys at 6 birdies, right? Like we took the over on Ricky, but the main reason for that was because of the fact that we had to take an over on somebody at birdies or better. Board, everyone's lower as well. So I think if you're going to play right now, the spot to play is over there in Underdog when you get slightly better lines. Or if you want to play these matchups, right? And you guys know that I'm not a huge proponent of playing matchups over here for props. The main reason being, and I can say this because I don't care about JTA anymore over there for Prize Picks. I met him at an event down here in Florida. It was the Live Miami event, right? And he ended up walking up to me like, "Hey, what's going on, Luke?" And if you don't know, he's the lines maker, at least was a lines maker for Prize Picks. And he interacts a lot in the Discord over there. So he knew me. He knew my face from like some of the videos that we did. And we got chatting. And at one point he brought up matchups. He's like, "Why don't you ever play matchups?" I'm like, "Because they're the biggest scam that I've ever seen." And he just chuckled to himself and he said, "Yeah, we make a lot of money off of those." So when I heard that was just the nail in the coffin right there. I already hated birdie or better matchups to begin with. But when you hear from somebody that works for the company that they're the absolute money makers when it comes to golf, you know what you should stick to, right? I mean, they make all these rules against us on Prize Picks to not put overs together, to lower our payouts, to, do all these things to just make it harder to enter golf props. You know what they don't, put any limits on? Birdie or better matchups, right? So now that they've added all these rules and people are starting to play more matchups, that is falling directly into their trap. So, I hate being like so negative about this board, but just know that every time you play one of these matchup bets that, obviously you'll win on them sometimes. Sometimes they post egregious matchups and I will play those from time to time. But if you're just taking like 50-50 shots on these, you're doing exactly what Prize Picks wants. So we'll see if there's any drastic misprices, but usually there aren't, to be frank. Like usually they do a pretty good job at pricing these. They make mistakes from time to time, but that is in the far minority. Let's say that. I know my buddy Dinger Betts was on this one. He was on an under on Justin Rose against Brendan Todd. That makes a little sense, I'll say. And I think Prize Picks Papa was on this one. I'm not 100% sure, so don't quote me on that. So if you wanted to take any of these matchups, tail my boys out there, Prize Picks Papa and Dinger Betts, but yeah, not my thing. Let's say that. And there's a reason for it. Like I said, when you hear from a lines maker directly, and you hear this like evil chuckle from the lines maker bringing them up, that tells you a lot right there. Thoughts on Ann, Todd, or Kirk? So if you're choosing between the three, Samuel, and you're talking like for Showdown, I think I like Kirk the most because he's the lowest owned out of the bunch there. But if you're like a cash contest, you're just asking who plays the best, I like Todd. Break the tie by birdies per round. That's how you do it. Not a bad idea. And I'm not sure what the idea is there. Prize Picks was bumming like crazy last night. Oh, what's going on? Speaking of the devil out there, Dinger, what's going on, man? And you're saying they're bumping like crazy, dude. It was let me show you. I'll just show you my slips. Actually, if I do that, then it shows my like name and my profits on there. So maybe not. But yeah, dude, every slip I entered ended up getting bumped. I had guys like Tony Finau at 69 strokes, and now he's at 67.5. And it happened before I even posted them on like my social media pages. So they must have seen my action, which obviously I'm a limited account. I'm only able to enter like $25 slips on this account. Wink, wink. So they saw that action coming in, and I guess they moved everything. So yeah, my family members that play Prize Picks too, wink, wink, weren't even able to get their slips in with the value because they literally bumped them that fast. So yeah, if you're waiting on any props at this point, go with some of these matchups. Like I was mentioning, I'm not a big matchup guy, so I don't really want to give you guys my takes. But like I said, if you go on Twitter, you hit up my boy Dinger Betts or Prize Picks Papa, they have a few matchup bets for you over there. So let's hop over to Hard Rock Bet and start talking some of the matchups now, where we can actually find an edge, unlike on Prize Picks. So first off, today, if you're looking for free money bet, you bet the Steelers to win. They're going to beat the Ravens. I can almost assure you of that. We're not talking football here, though. So let's go over to PGA and talk some matchups. And I'm kidding about that being free money, by the way. It's not. It's the Pittsburgh Steelers. They lost to the fucking Cardinals, Colts, and Patriots, right? So they can definitely lose to the backups on the Ravens. But they make the playoffs like every year, right? It's like a running meme at this point. They end up winning their last 3 games to make the playoffs. If destiny is a thing, it probably happens again. So let's see. Let's go through these matchups now. Everyone insta bumps. Yep. I think that's because they're scared, man. They must have lost a lot of money last night if they're acting like that. That's for sure. If we're going through these matchups here, there's one I already entered. It was Jordan Spieth against Brian Harman, and I already know people are gonna be like, "Oh shit, Luke's betting on Jordan Spieth again." Who would have guessed, right? But against Brian Harman, he should be more than minus 120 odds, right? Like Brian Harman is Mr. Consistency, right? He's not a very high birdie percentage type of player, whereas a Jordan Spieth, right, has a slightly wider range of outcomes. But when he's on his game, like Brian Harman does not have a chance to beat him, right? Like if both of these guys are going out there and they're playing their best golf, Jordan Spieth wins that matchup, right? He's got more firepower. He's a much more streaky player. And I like betting on my boy Jordan Spieth. So I took him. I think I put 120 bucks on it, right? So I can get 100 back if I end up winning that bet. But let's find a few more on here. I was considering taking Xander versus Cantlay. The main reason for that, and I haven't done this yet, we might do it here on stream. The main reason for that is because Cantlay doesn't have as good a track record as Xander Schauffele, and they're both playing pretty similar golf. So for me, right, that track record for Xander maybe gives him the slight edge here. And you can see in terms of odds, right, he's a slight underdog compared to Patrick Cantlay. So, and actually, let me log into Hard Rock here so that I can place it myself. I got to type in my security code here, so give me a second. Hopefully we don't unplug the mic. That would be fun. Okay, there we go. I logged in. Let me refresh my screen, show you guys. So yeah, we're going to enter that bet. We're going to take this Xander Schauffele. I'm going to put 105 on it just so we can get the 100 back, right? Make it a standard 1-unit bet and go with that. So we've got the Xander prop in. I'll show you guys some of my bets over here. We've got I guess you can see the free Najee Harris bet that I'm taking. Yeah, that's one of the NFL props I took. And the fact they don't have a cash out, I think means it bumped. So we'll double check on that. But yeah, this Jordan Spieth over, you can see I took it for right around 120 bucks. And because I'm curious what happened to the Najee, I got to look at that real quick. He bump up? Hopefully bumped up. Yeah, bumped up. There you go. Okay. A little bit of extra line value we got there. And frankly, by the way, that Najee Harris prop, it's going to bump up again. The Steelers, I don't understand how they're 3-point favorites. They should be like 10-point favorites today. And if they get out to a big lead, they're going to run the ball all day. That's for damn sure. All right, let's see what we're working with. So we got 2 matchups in so far. I want to look at some of these 3 balls now. And I don't think I'm allowed to show this on live stream, but one of my favorite tools for looking at the 3 bets is on Data Golf. But it's a paid tool that they have. So I don't think I can screen share this. I'm not a partner with Data Golf, or else I would. So let's see. What do they think is a really good 3-ball bet today? Nothing. There's not much value on there. But okay. Yeah, so the 3 balls don't look like there's a ton of inherent like line value over on that side. But let's go ahead and just try and find some the good old-fashioned way. How's that sound? All right. So these 3 balls, these are obviously just the different groups that are going out today. And we'll just skim through them real quick. So you got Poston, Siwoo, and Hoagie. That's a pretty evenly matched matchup, so I'd probably stay away there. Finau should obviously be the favorite here, and I don't know if he's a big enough favorite, right? Like Adam Hadman, Kurt Kitayama are okay players, but Tony Finau is a lot more consistent than those two. And so we'll put that one on the back burner. I kind of like that one there. And I'm going to do some line shopping on this plus 130, but that seems like a decent prop. Sam Burns versus Liston Hodges. Burns is a little bit too volatile for my liking. Let's see. Cole versus Vegas and Moore. Yeah, that's probably not enough juice. Like Taylor Moore is a madman. He could take him down there. Echeverria, Homa, and Van Rooyen. Minus 115 is not terrible on Max Homa, but I usually only bet guys for 3 balls if they're plus money. Minus money is usually just asking too much. You have Fowler versus English and Wallace. That's just like pretty average, I'd say. I'd rather be playing against Kitayama and Hadwin than English and Wallace. Let's say that. So that's probably why we'll avoid that. You have Xander Cantlay and Cam Young. Hell of a group right there, but the odds don't look all that favorable. Let's see, Glover, Svenny, Nick Taylor. If anything here, I would take, I would avoid it, frankly. But if I was going to bet anything, it would probably be Svensson. Let's look at Jason Day, Rogers, and Shank. That's definitely a stay away. Hardy, Tom Kim, Hughes. Tom Kim's the deserving favorite, but probably not enough juice there, at least not enough for me. Connors, Clark, and Bradley. Let's see. I mean, it's not terrible. I'm thinking about taking like Wyndham Clark here, but yeah, these odds, this plus 160, plus 170, plus 210, it's actually pretty decent return, especially because this is a really evenly matched matchup. Who? I don't even know who I'd bet here. It's so evenly. Yeah, let's stay away. That's a tough one to even choose between. But if anything, I feel like you take Connors at plus 210, right? Like this is such an evenly matched matchup. I mean, you're getting slightly better than the 33% odds. That's probably the way I would go. Straka, Harmon, Griot. Yeah, these freaking three balls. You know, there's a few that I like. We're probably gonna bet this Tony Finau one, but they're not always the easiest to find. Not betting Benny in at that. Not enough juice on Morikawa, especially with freaking Fitzpatrick in his group. You have Sahith, Jordan Spieth, and Batia. Yeah, I'd rather have the head-to-head to Spieth than this, three ball out there. Aberg, Matsuyama, McCarthy. Yeah, no thank you. Hovland, Im, Kirk. I think if anything, you'd take Sanjay, right? At nearly plus 200 odds. Like Hovland, he doesn't have a great track record here too, so we'll think about that one, but that's a near click. Not betting Scotty at minus odds, particularly against a Terrell Hatton and Brendan Todd. Henley, Davis, Power. These odds are terrible. And then let's look at this last one. We got Fleetwood, Rose, and Riley. I might take Fleetwood there. Riley is very volatile, right? So plus 260 is fine, right? He should be a pretty long shot, but only plus 160 on Rose. Like this feels like a decent matchup. Let me double check on Datagolf. How's that one not of value? They're very high on Tommy Fleetwood over there on Datagolf. So that's why I'm surprised that he's not better odds. Let's double check this. So no, not head to heads. We got to go to three balls. There we go. And then find good old Tommy Fleetwood. Yeah, actually, he is a value on there. I was wondering, I'm sitting there, I'm like, how is he not value? Like, he should 100% be value on their site because they like him so much. Yeah, so those will be the two balls that we go with. So, and just to double check, actually, let me see if the Tony Finau prop is another line value. I wouldn't mind that. And who's Finau playing? Finau's playing against, who is it again? It's Kitayama and Hadwin. Okay. Where are you at? There he is. So he's like an even money value there. He's not a plus or a minus value at that plus 130 mark, which is what we get him at, right? So yeah, we'll take him. Let's go with it. So these will be the two three balls that I'm going with for today. It's going to be this Tony Finau, which I'll go ahead and put 60 on. Yeah, let's put $60 on that one. That'll be to win 138. And then this Tommy Fleetwood prop, let's go ahead and put, like 55 on it? Something like that. All right, cool. So those are the 2 3 balls we're going to go with. It'll be this Tony Finau over. We put about half a unit on it, I would say. There at the $60 mark. And then this Tommy Fleetwood prop, I put $55 on it. So like another half unit bet. Obviously, if one of these 2 cashes, we'll be into the profit on the day. So that's kind of what we're hoping for. And considering their matchups, these pretty weak groups, I would say, at one is plus 130, plus 135 odds, seems pretty reasonable. So we've got those 2. We've got the Xander Schauffele going against Patrick Cantlay that I took. And then, like I said, this Jordan Spieth prop going up against Brian Harmon. So that's what we're going to have on Hard Rock Bet. Let's go over any questions, then hop on out of here. Let's see. Yeah, great say on the matchups not being the biggest, but there's always 2 to 3 that are mispriced. Yep. Prize Picks might not know that, but they can always find those. Just hate the payout shift. Yeah, dude. That's the thing. They almost force you into playing matchups. There are certain slates where there are some good matchups, but then there's some that they're tight, man. You know what I mean, right? You have to dig pretty deep to find those 2 or 3. But yeah, for sure. I agree with that take on it. There are always a few that you can take, but you have to really work for it, don't you? Right? You got to go through and find that value. All right, I think that's all we're going to do here. Let's double check. Let's see if they've posted a weather report over here on Twitter yet. Nope, no weather report yet. So obviously, make sure to stay tuned to all the different windy forecasts that you guys have for today. Let's go out there and have ourselves a day. So that's all I've got, guys. Appreciate all the support here on the channel. Smash that like button on the way out of here. Also, any of the content in the future. Let's take down a GPP for Showdown. Let's cash some prop slips and hopefully add to the bankroll here for moving day. Appreciate you, like I said, and I'll catch you guys for the round.